Your next comic. Everyone, let's keep it going for Hazel Green Young!
I'm sorry you have me after all that hope, because I tend to do things like things I hate. But hopefully it won't be quite that bad today. So I'm Hazel Green Young, also known as Dr. Young. Today I thought I'd talk about difficult conversations. So before I started doing stand-up, I talked to my family as to how they would feel about me using them for material. And both my daughters were pretty upbeat about it. So the older one said, you know, having you for my mother gives me so much material for my therapist. It's only fair that you get to use me in your stand-up. But I'm going to go back to 1863. So my great-great-grandfather was a white slave owner named Benny Green in Jones County, Georgia, and had my great-grandfather with a slave named Betty. So he had Ben and Betty. And I just sort of tried to imagine, without much success, what the conversation must have been like during that initial interaction. Was it like, you know, I like the way you pick my cotton? I mean, I really just don't know what you would say to start this thing rolling. But anyway, so they had a son, my great-grandfather. And I also think, well, what kind of conversation did he have with his father? And I'm thinking his father might have just been very pragmatic and say, look, son, I had you because this would be a good investment. One sperm and you're worth at least $1,000 on the slave market. So I think my great-grandfather took that to heart. And he had 43 children, 19 by my great-grandmother, and then a couple girlfriends. So he had to have an interesting conversation, because during the Great Migration he moved to Detroit, he asked his wife, my great-grandmother, could he bring his girlfriends? Well, I think it was a pretty short conversation, because I think she said something like, hell no. But even though the girlfriends didn't come, I think most of those, or a lot of the 43 came, because my father would go to the barber shop in Detroit, and when the barber said, okay, next Mr. Green, half the barber shop would stand up. But anyway, so I've had some difficult conversations in my lifetime, but one of them was with my father. My father's a Pentecostal minister, and we lived in a parsonage. So when I decided to stop going to church, it was pretty obvious, because you don't usually walk down the stairs during church. So my father said to me, Hazel, I noticed you don't go to church anymore. Do you want to tell me why? Well, I was afraid of my father, because he was like one of those spare the rod, spoil the child kind of people. And he was kind of like fast with the left hook kind of thing. So I said, Daddy, I'll write you a letter. And I did. It's kind of a wimpy thing, but I did that. But then I see other people like Jeffrey Dahmer, and I kind of wonder, you know, what kind of conversations he had. You know, he would invite people over for dinner, but how do you tell them that you want them to marinate in some olive oil and garlic and lemon before you come over for dinner? But anyway, that's pretty sick. So, but anyway, and then you see young people coming out to their parents. That's got to be a challenge. You know, it's not an easy thing to do, because, you know, when I did it last year, it was really hard, because I have a husband of 29 years, and I have 2 adult daughters, coming from a religious background. So, but the hardest part was coming out to my parents, because they're both dead. So that makes it hard. That's a challenge. But, you know, there are mediums. So I got a medium, and I talked to the medium. They found my parents and heaven or hell, wherever they are. And it was like, dear mom and dad, miss you, thoughts and prayers, blah, 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 blah. I really hate to disappoint you, but I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I want to be a comedian. So the way I look at it is there are several ways you can deal with these difficult conversations. You could, if you're brave, talk face to face. If you're not so brave, write a letter. And if all else fails, wait till the people die. And I want to say, get out the vote as if your life depends on it.